A lot of people, most of us have deal breakers when it comes to a potential partner. They can't smoke, or maybe they have to love dogs, but sometimes problematic traits surface only after you're already coupled up. Trina Read is a sex and relationship expert. She's here this morning to share some tips for turning those troublesome traits into something you can live with. Trina, welcome.
I don't know if you can live with them, but we'll attempt it. We'll attempt.
This is a really hot button topic because we know everybody has those little things, both about themselves and about their partners. So you say people have warning labels. What do you mean by that?
Well, just as you were describing, it's not until we start living with the person that we both let our hair down, and all of a sudden these little quirks start coming out. But the thing that's interesting is if our partner doesn't think they have any quirks, it's really a judgment call on our part. So what I find irritating about somebody living with somebody might be different than you. So it's really a judgment call about what we think are warning labels on our spouse.
I'm always of the mind that, or at least I try to convince myself that my irritation is my irritation, right?
Yeah.
So it's really not their problem as much as it is my problem. Is that?
I would say that's huge. So the thing is, when something is bugging you, your reaction to the behavior can almost be worse than the actual behavior. So if you're doing a lot of nonverbal communication about, so say they chew with their mouth open, and you don't directly say, it really irritates me when you're chewing with your mouth open. Instead, you're doing the nonverbal or the eye rolling.
Yeah.
If that happens over too long, that starts to be more damaging than the actual behavior. So I think part of the thing is you have to decide whether it's something you can live with, or if chewing with the mouth open is just going to drive you crazy for the next 50 years, and you have to start discussing it with your partner.
So do you think it's okay to broach these things? I mean, they seem tiny, but they can sort of eat at you, right?
Well, two things. First of all, no matter who you live with, they're going to drive you crazy over time. So everybody's got habits that are going to make you crazy. And I think it's not just one habit. It's an accumulation of habits. So they chew with their mouth open, they leave wet towels on the floor, they scratch their back with a fork. Who does that? Who does that? But it's the accumulation of habits and not understanding and dealing with the habits. And so all of a sudden you've got this big hot mess. And I think that's what becomes the problem.
In terms of discussion, it's interesting because Ted and I both asked our partners what they thought our top 3 annoying habits were. They were very quick to send us lists. You said your husband didn't want to tell you.
Yeah, so I said to my husband, hey, honey, what are my bad habits? And he's like, nothing. And I'm like, oh, come on. And he's like, you know what, I just don't want to bring it up. And so I thought that was really interesting that he didn't want to unnecessarily instigate a fight. But I do think it's interesting that your partner said,
very quickly,
here it is, honey, here's your habits, yeah.
And I know them, too. Okay, so you say sort of a solution can be to fall in love with the behavior. How?
Well, first of all, I think the onus is also on the person who has the quirk. So if you're like, when we get together with somebody, we feel like there's that trust issue that they will accept us warts and all. And when somebody starts nagging at us about a quirk, we automatically get defensive. But we also have to ask ourselves, is it worth digging in our heels and not changing? Because it's hard enough to motivate yourself to change when you want to, but when somebody's forcing you to change, it can be a lot more harder to motivate yourself to change. So I think we really have to ask ourselves, when our partner's asking us to do something different, do we need to accommodate? So I think part of what you were saying, you take responsibility for things that bug you, but it's also up to the person to start changing too. Both partners have to come to the middle ground. So falling in love with that person, if it's not a deal breaker, you have to say to yourself, okay, so how can I start to find this endearing? And really over time, if that's your mindset, instead of saying this really bugs me, but this is something that I can live with, and I'm going to try and find something, it will eventually turn into something, hopefully, that you love. Because really, if you're going to be together for the next 50 years, you can rage and you can rail and you can nag, and that's not how you want your personal happiness to be. You want it to be something that you can start to love about that person.
Hopefully my husband will start to love the fact that I never close the Tupperware in the fridge. Trina, where can people find you?
They can go to my website. It's vivaexo.com.
And as always, we have links up on our website, breakfasttelevision.ca. Always lovely to speak with you. Thanks for coming by this morning.
Thanks for having me.